The red dirt road cut across the mountainside like an old scar, and the long, dry season had split its surface into fine, vein-like cracks. Powdery dust clung to wild myrtle leaves, to the wiry blades of kogon grass, and even to the late afternoon sky, turning a dull copper gray. In the hush that seemed to hold nothing but cicadas and wind sliding through the dipterocarp forest, a white shape burst from the tree line, small, low to the ground, trembling, yet impossibly determined, as though it had chosen this exact moment to shatter the rules of silence. A baby albino elephant. Not the white of clouds, nor the white of limewash. Its skin carried a pale pink sheen, the kind of white that makes you want to shield it with your hands and, at the same time, sends a chill up your spine because it is too rare, too exposed. A glaring sign in the forest, a bright slash against red earth and deep green. It ran straight into the middle of the road, its small feet thudding on dry dust, ears flapping wildly as if trying to swat away an invisible fear. Its short trunk fumbled at the air, reached, recoiled, as though it had brushed thorns. In the patrol vehicle, Lieutenant Liam braked so hard the entire body of the truck jolted. The seatbelt cinched across his chest. He had lived through 11 dry seasons in these border forests. He had seen every signature of poaching, spent shells like bleached bones, motorcycle tracks cutting across animal trails, salt licks laced with sedatives, footpaths absent from maps, but present in greed. He had met elephants too, whole herds moving through a stream like a gray river. But he had never seen an albino, and he had certainly never seen an albino calf bolt onto the road with a look that felt deliberate. "Stop, stop!" he blurted, as if speaking to himself, leaning forward over the wheel. And in that very instant he noticed the second strange thing. It wasn't running in panic, it was running with direction. It halted in the center of the road for exactly one heartbeat and turned its head toward the forest. The darkness of its eyes on that pale face made the stare look like an exclamation mark. Then it looked at him, not the frantic gaze of an animal cornered, but something urgent, pleading, pushing as if it wanted him out of the truck, wanted him following. In the passenger seat, Noah, the young ranger, barely a year on the line, swallowed hard, voice cracking. "Sir, the calf, is it lost? Did it get separated from its mother?" Liam didn't answer. In his gut, a needle began turning slowly, pricking the hard-earned instinct he relied on to survive. Nothing is purely natural here anymore. Not with poachers this close. He opened the door. Heat slapped his face, thick with dust, and the smell of trees cracking their own sap open. The calf stepped back, but it didn't flee. It turned toward the forest again, ran a few meters, stopped, and looked back as if checking whether he was coming. That behavior was too much like a summons. And because it felt so much like a summons, a cold line crept up Liam's spine. "Don't get out." The radio on the dash suddenly crackled, Tramtrungtin's voice fractured by the terrain. "Liam, do you copy? Report position. Signs of cable snares. Northern line." The words broke apart like rolling stones. Then silence. Liam stared at the set, tapped it once, nothing but a long, insect-thin hiss. Reception always faltered here, he knew that. But the timing of this dead silence felt like a hand closing around the throat of the world. The calf ran again, faster, darting into a narrow path at the forest edge one an untrained eye might miss, because the kogon grass had been pressed down and the leaf litter brushed aside as if someone had passed very recently. Liam's gaze dropped. The calf's prints were clear, but beside them were thinner, regular marks, rubber sandals, hard soles. Human. In a single flash he understood that deliberate feeling might not belong to the elephant at all. The calf was not choosing to lead him. It was being forced into it. A living lure. He'd heard stories across the border. Poachers didn't only set traps for legs, they set traps for compassion. An injured young animal, a cry in the night, something wrong in the forest, enough to draw patrols off their route, away from checkpoints, away from the one road where they could stop a truck of ivory. And once the rangers left, the road opened like an unlocked gate. Liam shot a glance back at the vehicle. Today's patrol was split into 2 units. His unit covered the main crossing, where unfamiliar engines and tire tracks most often appeared. If he left, that line would go bare. If he stayed, the calf might die. His heart hammered, heavy as if packed with stones. He wasn't easily pulled by emotion, the forest had trained that out of him, but the small white creature watching him carried the weight of life and plea in its eyes. Noah stepped down too, breath sharp. "Sir, we should call the other team." "The radio's dead," Liam cut in, eyes still on the tree line. "You stay with the truck." Noah's voice jumped. "I'm not letting you go in alone." End quote. Liam looked at him and saw the young fire there, the raw kindness not yet sanded down by the forest. He wanted to stamp it out to save them both, and yet he couldn't, because that same fire had once saved him in his first years, before he learned fear. "Orders," he said, low and firm. "You stay. If a strange vehicle comes, if you hear engines, fire a flare. If I'm not back in 10 minutes, you head to the station by the old road, do not take shortcuts." End quote. Noah bit his lip until it bled, but nodded. Liam drew his machete, checked the rubber bullet gun at his hip, the kind meant to drive animals back, not kill, and followed the narrow trail. Red dust coated his trousers. Dry leaves snapped like brittle bones underfoot. The calf trotted ahead, stopping now and then to look back. The stare was both guiding and begging. The deeper they went, the more human the forest became. Branches snapped as markers, thin nylon stretched low like a thread, the fresh scent of cigarette smoke. He reminded himself, don't chase emotion. Watch the ground. Watch the wind. Watch for what doesn't belong. The trail dipped. Thick trunks swallowed the light. The air cooled but grew heavy with damp rot. Somewhere came the sound of dripping no stream, more like water seeping through a rock pocket or a sink in the earth. The calf sped up, then suddenly slowed. It placed each foot carefully, as if afraid to set it down. Its ears sagged. Its small trunk searched the air, then recoiled. It stopped. Liam stopped too. And as his eyes adjusted to the shade, he saw what made his scalp go numb. A dead zone. The earth ahead was slightly sunken, covered with leaf litter laid so neatly it looked natural. Small stakes sat low at the edges, and beneath those leaves, thin as a line of cold teeth, ran a steel cable stretched at shin height. One more half step and it would bite. Ankle, knee, or a fall that would drag a body down into the pit. How deep, he couldn't tell. Deep enough, he knew, that no one would hear screams in thick forest. Deep enough for a person to vanish into a story told later beside a fire. The calf stood at the rim, trembling. On its pale skin lay a dirty gray smear, as if hands had grabbed and tugged. Around one hind leg, a raw red abrasion circled like a rope had rubbed it. It had nearly been snared. Or it had been held and released here, at the perfect moment, like a decoy bird with a string tied to its foot. Liam held his breath. He scanned silence. No voices, no alarm calls, only his own heartbeat and leaves stirring in a thin wind. He eased back one step, slow as pulling a foot from the mouth of a cliff. Then he took a small stone and tossed it onto the leaf cover. The leaves slid, exposing a mouth of blackness. Cold air rose like the breath of buried earth. At that instant, the spare handheld radio in his pocket gave a single crackle, then died completely, as if someone had snapped the last lifeline. Liam looked up into the canopy and realized, this area might be jammed. The poachers weren't only trapping legs, they were trapping rescue itself. Sweat slid down his temple, cold as stream water. The calf let out a thin, fraying cry. It looked at him, then at the pit. In its eyes he no longer saw anything deliberate. Only desperation being exploited, small life, dragged into a cold game designed by grown men. He knew he stood on a razor edge. One wrong step, and he'd die. Leaving could cost the patrol line. Staying too long could mean ambush. But if he abandoned the calf, he would carry its white gaze forever, the way it had run into the road, pleading for help, and met only his cautious restraint. Somewhere very near, a dry twig snapped, cracked like a fingernail pressed into wood. Liam didn't turn. He only tightened his grip on the machete, feeling the tendons in his hand rise hard beneath the skin. He lowered his voice, speaking as if to the elephant, yet also to himself. Don't move. Listen to me. Stay still. And in that moment he understood. The albino calf wasn't just bait. It was a cruel reminder that compassion without clarity could become the cable that tightens around your own neck. Liam did not turn when he heard that crack. Because in the forest there are moments when following instinct will turn you into a cross pressed into the earth. He stayed still, forcing his breathing to slow, so slow that each breath felt like it had to slip through a narrow stone gap in his chest. Beneath the canopy, the air was thick, carrying damp soil and a faint metallic scent, rusted steel that had weathered long enough to lose its shine but not long enough to dissolve into the forest's normal. The albino calf stood at the pit's edge, its small body shaking in short bursts, like a white leaf shivering against a cold wind. It didn't cry now. Its silence hurt worse than sound, because it wasn't calm, only a survival reflex folding in on itself, waiting for fate's next blow. Liam scanned left and right without turning his neck. To the east, brush grew dense with vines, good cover, but hard to move quietly. To the west, the trees thinned, and sunlight broke through. Anyone standing there might be revealed by glare. He saw nothing, but in the forest, not seeing never means not being. He remembered something Station Chief Tin once said during a rain-soaked shift change. Never trust a single trap. It's only the invitation, the polite greeting before they strike. Liam lifted his machete before his chest, not to swing, but to anchor himself. Weight, familiarity, steadiness. He crouched and picked up a dry branch the length of his forearm, sap still clinging to its end. Carefully, he touched the branch to the steel cable. The wire trembled and gave off a short, cold ring, like metal tapped against teeth. Immediately behind him, a sound barely audible escaped through clenched teeth. Not a whistle, not quite, but a breath forced thin. Liam swallowed a curse. Someone was there. Close. He didn't charge. He didn't retreat. Both would have ended fast, and fast endings in the forest were rarely good. "Come out," he said. Not loud, not soft, just enough for wind to carry a short distance. "Nice snare, but you picked the wrong place to waste it." No answer. Only leaves shifting, as if someone adjusted their stance. Liam understood he was being tested. A seasoned poacher wouldn't show himself immediately. They wanted to see his reaction, panic, attack, or begging. And they knew his radio was dead, because if it weren't, they would never have allowed silence to fall so perfectly. The calf shifted a tiny step. The cable quivered. "Stay," Liam said, voice gentler now, like calming a child about to cry. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." He didn't know whether it understood, but it froze again. Its small trunk brushed the ground, curled, released a crude, self-soothing gesture, honest enough to hurt. Pieces clicked together in his mind. The calf separated from the herd by a small blast, perhaps, or a foreign scent, then driven toward the road. Released at the exact moment the patrol arrived. Once Liam left the line, the road opened. Another crew would move ivory, or shoot a mother elephant elsewhere, or clear snares on the main route. A layered game. The white calf was simply the most visible piece. A branch behind him shifted again, clearer now. Liam tightened his stance, weight settling into his back foot, ready to dodge. "Friend," he said into the trees, "I know you're there. I also know you don't want noise. I'm not carrying live rounds. I've got no signal. If you wanted me dead, you'd have done it already. So tell me, what do you want?" Silence stretched until his ears began to hum. Then a voice rose, deep and rough like wood smoked for years. "Go back to your truck," it said, direction uncertain. "Leave the little one. This isn't your business." Liam gave a small, humorless laugh. "It became my business when you used it as bait." A pause. Then the voice replied, slow, "Bait is still an animal. Animals are born to die." The words dropped into the forest like a stone. Something inside Liam tightened. Not anger, but exhaustion. The old fatigue of repeating the same argument with those who saw the forest as a warehouse and life as inventory. "It's a child," Liam said, "and it's alive. ADS." He didn't know what that would touch, conscience, memory, or only emptiness, but he placed the truth between them. Footsteps shifted, this time closer. Liam tensed for a strike, but none came. The voice returned nearer. "Take the snare off, then go. We don't want this big." "Then you do it," Liam said immediately. "I'll stand here. You step into the light." A rough, short chuckle. "You've got nerve." "No," Liam said. "I've got no way out." It was bare and calm. In that instant, roles peeled away. Ranger, poacher, prey, and only humans remained in a forest, carrying ugly choices. A shadow stepped slowly into the west light. A short, broad-shouldered man, a knife at his hip. He stopped about 10 meters away, just far enough for both to remain wary. "You take it off," he said, indicating the calf. "I'll keep my distance." Liam stared at him, then at the calf. He calculated fast. If this man was here, there might be others in the east. If Liam crouched to work the cable, his back would be exposed. But if he did nothing, the calf couldn't leave safely. So he chose a third way. He retreated a step, then another, coaxing the calf with his voice and hand to move away from the pit's rim. When the distance was safer, he suddenly tossed the branch onto the leaf cover, tearing it open and exposing the entire mouth of the trap and the cable line. "Your trap's visible now," Liam said. "If you want secrecy, you'll have to dismantle it." The broad man froze. Wind moved through leaves like whispers. The forest watched. After a long time, he stepped forward, slow, careful, mirroring the way Liam had entered. He crouched and worked with practiced ease, unhooking the cable, collecting stakes. Each movement was swift and efficient, the motions of a craft built into bone. Liam never took his eyes off him. Yet he felt the calf drift closer, its body brushing his pant leg, fragile contact, full of trust. Warmth rose in Liam's chest, and pain with it. There are moments when trust is given at the edge of danger, without any guarantee. When the snare was gone, the man backed away, dissolving into trees as if he had never existed. No greeting, no threat. Only the heavy silence of a temporary truce, a thin boundary between blood and not yet blood. Liam exhaled, slow and deep, like surfacing from dark water. He looked at the calf. It looked back. In those eyes there was no longer despair, only a wordless question. What now? Liam had no complete answer. He only knew the forest had not ended its game. And he, along with the small white elephant, had only crossed the first screen. They left the dead zone as the light sank lower and the forest changed its voice. The dappled brightness of earlier was gone. In its place lay a thin veil of shadow, like mourning cloth over everything, making each trunk and root seem shaped like something waiting. Liam walked half a step ahead, never fully turning his back to the calf. He moved slowly, placing each foot where he'd already read the ground where the soil held, where leaves didn't hide sudden hollows. The albino calf followed, no longer running. It walked with the strange rhythm of one who has just escaped death, each step asking permission of the earth. Its ears fluttered faintly. Its small trunk sometimes brushed Liam's heel brief. Light contact. As if reminding itself he was still there. Liam didn't swat it away. In a forest like this, that fragile touch could be the only thread keeping a creature from dissolving into fear. But he knew danger hadn't passed. It had only changed shape. They won't let this go, he thought, remembering the broad-shouldered man fading into trees. A silent truce is not an ending, it's a delay. And in these forests where paths braid like webs, delay can become ambush at any moment. After 50 meters, Liam stopped and lifted a hand, not for the calf, but for himself. He crouched beside a broken stump and peeled back leaf litter. Beneath it, a near-invisible line. Nylon. Stretched low. Not a steel cable this time, but a simple trip line for a homemade alarm. One touch and tins would clatter. Noise enough to signal, visitor. He cut it. A soft ting, then silence. He closed his eyes for one heartbeat, listening for response. None. Yet the silence no longer felt neutral. It felt watched. By the time they reached the forest edge and the path opened to the red road, the patrol truck still sat there, an oddly lucky rock not yet swept away. Noah stood by the door, spine straight but shoulders taut, both hands gripping the flare gun. Seeing Liam, relief almost broke audibly from his chest. "Sir," Noah began, then stopped when he saw the calf. "Oh my." "Quiet," Liam signaled. "Open the rear." They guided the calf toward the open space in back where equipment had been cleared. It didn't want to climb. It stopped, turning to stare into the forest where darkness thickened, its pale body cruelly visible like a shard of moon. "Maybe its mother's nearby," Noah whispered. Liam nodded, but weight settled in his chest. "Or it's been driven away." He knew the method. Split the herd, use the young, strike the instinct to protect. Once the mother breaks cover searching, she exposes herself one shot, one larger trap. The forest has seen too many reunions that never arrive. The calf refused to enter. It planted its feet, ears low, breathing hard. Liam knelt at a distance, not touching. He spoke slowly. each word falling like leaves. "Listen," he said, though he wasn't sure it understood. "It isn't safe here. We'll take you to people. Medicine. Signal." The calf shook its head slightly and pointed toward the forest with its trunk awkward, but clear. "Sir," Noah murmured, "if the mother's alive, she'll come back looking." Liam closed his eyes. Two choices, both smelling of loss. Take the calf, and maybe it lives yet grows without the herd, carrying an invisible cut. Leave it, and maybe it finds its mother or becomes bait again, with Liam's compassion no longer present as shield. A distant engine drifted in faint, but enough to raise gooseflesh. Not their patrol, the low steady beat of a pickup, maybe a modified tractor truck. The main road was being breached. "No time," Liam said, voice hardening. "Noah, get in. Start the engine." The calf, startled at the ignition, stepped back. Liam rose and placed himself between it and the forest's thin human wall, determined. "Please," he whispered, almost begging, "give me a chance to save you." For a strange moment, everything seemed to pause. Cicadas stopped. Wind held. Even the distant engine felt stretched thin. The calf stared. In its eyes, Liam saw an uneven reflection, one small human trying to do something larger than his strength. Then it climbed into the truck. The door shut. The engine roared. They left the red road behind, trailing dust and unanswered questions. But the forest did not let them go cleanly. 2 kilometers from the station, the front wheel dropped into a sudden pit, small but deep enough to tilt the vehicle hard. Metal scraped stone with a sharp scream. Liam slammed the brakes. Dead stop. "Road trap," Noah gasped. They dug it ahead of time. Liam jumped out, pulse pounding, eyes scanning. The forest pressed close on both sides, too quiet. Inside, the calf began to panic, thumping its body against the wall with heavy thuds. Then ahead, 3 figures stepped onto the road, faces uncovered. They blocked the way at a distance that made Liam's rubber bullet gun meaningless. The center man was the same broad shadow from earlier, knife at his hip. "You didn't keep the truce," he said. Liam stared him down. "Your truce didn't include its life." The man curled his lip. "Life?" he repeated, tasting the word as if it were foreign. "You think taking it away is saving it? You just signed the herd's sentence." The blow landed in Liam's chest without warning. His mouth opened no immediate rebuttal. Because in some corner of reason, he knew the man could be partly right. And that partial truth was the most dangerous kind. The calf screamed high, tearing echoing through trees like a distress flare. Somewhere, far or near, a mother might be listening. The man lifted a hand. The other 2 split to either side of the road, forming a pinch. Liam's hand hovered at his sidearm, knowing it was little more than symbolic resistance. He understood then the real climax wasn't in the cable snare or pit. It was here, choosing between a life in front of him and consequences he couldn't fully see, between immediate action and the thin faith that the forest might still have room for mercy. "Step back," the man said. "Let it down. Then you go." Liam didn't step back. He stood still, and in that stillness made a decision he would carry for the rest of his days, whether it became salvation or penance. Liam did not step back. When 3 men blocked the road, when the albino calf screamed as if splitting the forest, when the wheel was still trapped in the dugout pit, he suddenly felt every choice he'd ever made collapse into a single point like an arrow already loosed, impossible to call back. Sometimes you don't choose between right and wrong. You choose which pain you're willing to carry longer. "You're stubborn," the broad-shouldered man said, voice steady, but with a strange fatigue, as if he'd spoken these words to too many people too many times. "You think you're a hero?" Liam shook his head slowly. "No, I'm just the one who stays." "Stays with what?" "With consequences," Liam said, "of letting it go, and of not letting it go. Thanks for watching." Wind slid across the road, lifting a thin haze of red dust. One of the men at the side shifted and nudged a pebble, small sound, big meaning. Noah stayed silent in the truck, but Liam knew the boy was watching through the mirror, waiting for a signal. The calf kept crying, uneven now, broken like the breath of someone running while sobbing. Liam glanced back through the open door. Its dark eyes were wide with primitive terror, not the fear of being chased, but the fear of being abandoned. And then Liam understood what he'd been avoiding since he first took the job. The forest does not need heroes. It needs people who accept responsibility. He turned back. "If I let it down," he said, "what do you guarantee?" The man gave a short laugh. "Guarantee what?" Life? No one guarantees that. No, Liam said. Guarantee you won't use it as bait again. Silence dropped heavy. The man stared at Liam a long time, measuring a distance not of meters but of lives lived on different roads. You're naive, he said at last. But, fine. He gestured to the two beside him. They eased back half a step, not much, but enough to loosen the chokehold of the moment. Let it down, he said. Now. Liam opened the door. The calf retreated, then advanced, then froze hesitation in a small chain of movements. Liam did not touch it. He only angled himself to open a path toward the forest, and stepped aside one step of making room, not of walking away. The calf stepped onto the road. Its pale foot pressed into red dust, leaving a small print, heartbreakingly clear. It stood between humans and forest, not knowing which direction belonged to safety. Then, deep in the trees, far and low, a sound rolled outward, a rumbling call, long and heavy, like earth shifting in its sleep. The calf jolted, its ears lifted. It turned toward the forest and answered with a short, high cry. Liam held his breath. The call came again, closer. No one spoke. Even the men blocking the road stood still, caught in a ritual older than any law. The forest was speaking in a language that needed no translator. The calf ran. No hesitation now, no glance back. It dove into the old path, pale body swallowed by trunks and shadow, then vanished like milk spilled into soil. Only snapped twigs, whispering leaves, and the echo of a life returned to where it belonged, remained. Liam stood there a long time afterward. He did not look at the men. He looked at the empty place where the calf had been, and that emptiness felt too wide, as if something fragile had passed through his life and left a thin streak of light behind. "You got lucky," the man said, tension drained. "If its mother wasn't nearby, then today I lose," Liam cut in. "I know." The man looked at him once more, then turned away. 3 shadows dissolved into the forest, quick and clean, as if they had never existed. No threat, no promise. Only a truth hanging in the air. The game was not over, only paused. Noah climbed down, legs still shaking. "Sir, are you okay?" Liam nodded. "Get in, we're going back." They said little on the remaining drive. Darkness thickened, hiding the road, hiding the pit, hiding the choices just made. But in Liam's mind, everything stayed bright, bright enough to ache. That night, once a proper report went out on stable signal, once the wheel was patched, once coffee cooled during late watch, Liam sat alone on the station porch and looked into the forest as if at a difficult friend. He knew he had done something not written in manuals. He also knew he would pay in questions, in suspicion, in unease, each time a strange noise rose in the night. But somewhere out there, a mother elephant might be pressing her trunk to her calf's forehead, breathing in the familiar scent and confirming it was still here. That thought, fragile and real, was enough for him to accept whatever followed. The forest breathed. And this time, Liam breathed with it. In the days that followed, the forest grew quiet in a way that felt suspicious. Not the gentle quiet of night rain or morning fog, but the quiet of someone who has swallowed a heavy secret. Liam felt it on every shift. Fewer birds, more chaotic animal tracks, familiar paths behaving as if they were avoiding human eyes. The forest did not blame him. The forest simply remembered. His report caused a subtle ripple. No one scolded him outright. No one praised him. Questions arrived slowly, circling like forest rain that seeps into soil instead of striking hard. Why let the calf return? Why not take it to rescue? Why trust instinct in an armed situation? Liam answered with the bare truth. He had stood where no choice stayed clean, and he had chosen the one that still let him look at the forest without turning away. On the 3rd night after the incident, during a late shift change, he heard a sound far away, a long, low rumble across the valley. It might have been wind, or earth, or something larger moving through darkness. He stood and stepped to the porch edge, listening. It did not repeat, but it left behind a clear sensation. Someone had crossed near his life without leaving footprints, only a thin connection. Noah came to stand beside him. "Do you regret it?" The question fell like a leaf light, yet heavy as stone. Liam thought for a long time. He thought of the pit, the cold cable, the broad man's eyes, the calf's tearing cry. He thought of the roads he hadn't taken. "No," he said at last, "but I'm not proud either. Noah nodded, as if understanding something he couldn't yet name. A week later they found large tracks by the southern stream and adult elephants. Beside them were smaller prints, tangled but unmistakable. No fresh snares, no cables, only soft earth pressed down, and grass broken in the familiar rhythm of a herd. Liam knelt and laid his palm inside the big print. The soil was still warm, not from sunlight, but from life passing through. He didn't smile. He didn't pray. He stood, brushed his hands clean, and marked the location in his notebook, an unofficial note, outside procedure, but necessary for those who still believed. Protecting the forest wasn't only stopping evil, but opening a way for the right thing to return. After that, no one saw the albino calf run onto the road again. Yet sometimes, in late afternoons when the light stretched long over red earth, Liam would remember that pale streak brightness, not meant to lead someone away, but to lead them back. The forest continued. People continued. And between those two worlds there are people like Liam, too small to change everything, but steady enough to remain and not betray what they believe is right. If this story touched you, please like, share, subscribe, and comment, so we can keep spreading stories of compassion, responsibility, and faith that crosses boundaries between human beings and nature.